Yeah, I'm very process oriented. So it was it was really about not focusing on that outcome because it was so far out of my reach. Like 3 years prior, when I graduated from college in 2009, like getting to the Olympics was completely outside the realm of possibility, or so it would seem. Um, Getting to the Olympic trials though was a reasonable goal. And so that's, I kind of set my sights there. And once I had qualified for a US championship and knew that I was at the level where getting to the Olympic trials in 2012 was feasible, then the next step was like, well, how do I become someone that can finish in the top 10? And once I'd done that, it was like, how do I become someone that can finish in the top 3? And so I started focusing on other US championship races, and just trying to finish on the podiums at those races so that I could kind of like develop the habit of being someone that contended, to make a team. And so I was just like focusing on those steps along the way were what kind of helped get me to that place where I started to believe that I could do it at the Olympic trials. Yeah, I really it was just about going like all in on running, and kind of letting it just be the center point of my life. And so, for a while I was coaching at UC Davis where I had graduated from, um, and I'd saved up enough money just like by through prize money on the roads in the fall before 2012. And then I was given a grant by, a local organization, the Sacramento Running Association. So I kind of like pooled enough money together that I was like, well, I could step away from working for 6 months and just pretend to be a professional runner because I wasn't at a level where I was going to get sponsored. But I just wanted to give myself that shot. And so it was like, once I did that, kind of gave myself the opportunity to live exactly like all the women I was going to be competing against. My training really elevated at that point, and I let every day, the main thing I got up and did every day was how do I train to the best of my ability, how do I recover to the best of my ability so that I can be even better next week, next month, 6 months down the road. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That, yeah, and I'm a big believer in that. So yeah, I was all about, yeah, developing the daily systems, that allowed me to be the best possible athlete I could be. Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of race opportunities along the way, and everybody has a different approach. Some people really like to just put their head down and train and train and train, and then come up for one big moment. I always found that I really prefer racing to training, so I like to have a full race schedule, and it also helps me feel more at ease when I'm racing if I've just stood on a lot of start lines, because you get nervous. Everybody gets nervous. Um, but even like at the Olympic trials, for example, the 5,000 has 2 rounds, and I really like that. You have to get through the first round in order to get to the final, and I always found that by the final round, I was actually like more excited to be standing in the stadium again, and just like enjoying the atmosphere, and I felt like some of the pressure had come off just by getting through a first round. Um, by trying not to put any pressure on myself. I got there. I think what I did a really good job of that day and that morning, the morning of that race, was taking a big picture perspective and just reminding myself of the journey and how 3 years before, contending to make an Olympic team just didn't seem realistic at all. And that the original goal was simply to get to the Olympic trials. And so to be there 3 years later and even thinking I had an outside shot at making the team, even if nobody else in the world, other than now my husband Drew, he believed it and I believed it, and that's about it. But so just kind of like being grateful that I was there and I was way better than I ever had imagined I could be. And so I just kind of went into the race with an attitude of like, this is fun and exciting, and I might go surprise a lot of people. I definitely do. I mean, because there were women that were better than me, um, that that caved more in that moment, and I learned a lot from that. And so 4 years later, for 2016, um, I remember thinking to myself before that race, like, "Hey, just go treat this like any other race," because there are going to be other people that, on paper, again, should beat me, but they're going to, like, the moment is going to freak them out more. And if I can just keep my head, keep my composure, and just go do what I'm capable of doing, then I'm going to be better off. That's my dog. Sorry, he's he's a pit bull. Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little bit of going back to being process oriented. And so like never making myself feel like it's all about one moment, and rather letting it be a moment, on the way to other things. Because every game or every race is still kind of like just one step in your journey to, towards something else. And so, and obviously some moments are bigger and feel like they matter a lot more than others. But um, I I try to always think of it as just like, whatever happens, I'm going to build off of this and I'm going to grow from it and I'm going to be better in the future. Um, I I had really faded out of contention. I was with like a lap and a half to go. I was in eighth place. And I was feeling just a little bit disappointed because I thought I could finish higher. And then I heard Drew yelling for me, and and it just kind of like sparked something in me that was like, wow, like I can't give up. I can't settle here in eighth place. Like we've worked so hard to get here, and this is the moment where I really want to leave my heart out on this track. And so I could see there were a few women immediately ahead of me, and so I knew, like, just put yourself in fifth place. Like, just go from eighth to fifth. That's right there. You can do that. And so once I got around them and could see further up ahead on the track, then I could see that the woman in third place was really starting to fade. And so that's when I started to think I could catch her. And so, at that point, I really thought the Olympic standard was out the window. I didn't even think I was going to make an Olympic team anymore, but I focused on finishing on the podium. And I just thought, if I can stand on the podium at the Olympic trials, even if I'm not going to the Olympics, like that's a huge accomplishment. And so I just fixated on that. I just kind of like I formed that goal on the fly, and I fixated on that, and trying to bring back the third place runner to me. And um, with 100 meters to go, she was still ahead, but I was gaining on her, and then I could just hear the crowd And they were going crazy. So I knew that from their perspective up in the stands, like the gap between us must be shrinking a lot, and that I was making the moment happen. And so as I got to the line, I leaned at the line, um, and ended up taking third by 0.04 seconds. Um, I surprised myself. I was very locked into the moment and the heat of competition. Um, so yeah, I guess when I look back, I just really like racing people. I've never been good at time trialing. I've never been someone that can perform well if I'm focused on the time in a race, which is a little different than other runners. But so like I think allowing myself to just get totally swept up in the moment of focusing on trying to finish third place and not worrying about the time, yeah, really helped me get way more out of myself than I had previously.